My parents demanded my entire paycheck after I got promoted, so I let them kick me out and watch their financial empire collapse. Hey Reddit. So my parents basically tried to financially enslave me after I got promoted, threatened to kick me out when I said no, so I called their bluff and moved out. Now they're drowning in debt and blowing up my phone asking for help. This is going to be a long one, so grab some snacks. I'm 26 and until 3 months ago, I was living at home with my parents and my younger sister Ashley, who's 23. Before we get into the main event, I need to give you the full picture of how messed up my family dynamic has been for basically my entire adult life. My parents have this weird thing where they treat Ashley like she's made of glass and can do no wrong, while I've been the family ATM since I turned 18. I'm not being dramatic here. Let me break down how this has played out over the years. When I was 18 and started working my first real job at a logistics company making $12 an hour, my parents sat me down and explained that since I was now an adult making money, I needed to contribute $350 monthly for rent. Cool, whatever. I get it. Contributing to household expenses seems fair on paper. Except Ashley turned 18 2 years later, got a part-time job at a clothing store, and paid exactly $0 in rent. When I asked why, my dad hit me with, well, Ashley is saving for college. Here's the thing though. I was also in college at the time. I was taking classes at the local state university while working full-time. I paid for my own tuition out of pocket by working overtime shifts and basically never sleeping. Ashley got her entire college fund paid for by our parents. They dropped $40,000 over 4 years on her education at a private school because she deserves the full college experience. I got the full experience of eating ramen for dinner and wondering if I could afford textbooks that semester. The double standards didn't stop there. Throughout college, I was expected to maintain a 3.5 GPA minimum, or my parents would reconsider my living situation, which was code for kicking me out. Meanwhile, Ashley coasted through school with a 2.8 GPA, and my parents were just thrilled she was finding herself and exploring her passions. Her passion was apparently partying and changing her major 4 times. I remember one semester I got a B- plus in statistics, and my dad sat me down for a serious talk about my declining academic performance. A B- plus. I was working 40 hours a week and taking 15 credit hours, and somehow a B+ meant I was slacking off. That same semester, Ashley failed 2 classes and had to retake them, and my parents' response was to hire her a tutor that cost $50 an hour. They paid for 10 hours of tutoring. That's $500 they dropped on Ashley to fix her mistakes, while I got lectured for getting a B+ while working full-time. The favoritism extended to everything. When I needed new work shoes because mine had holes in them, I had to buy them myself. When Ashley wanted new shoes for a party, my mom took her shopping and bought her 3 pairs. When my car needed an oil change, I paid for it. When Ashley's car needed anything, my parents covered it and told her not to worry about it. I kept a mental tally of all this stuff for years. Not because I'm petty, but because I genuinely couldn't believe how blatant it was. Every birthday, every holiday, every life milestone. The difference in how they treated us was so obvious that even extended family members started noticing and commenting on it. Fast forward to me graduating at 22. I busted my back and graduated with a 3.7 GPA in supply chain management while working 40 hours a week. My reward? A card that said congrats, and my dad asking when I planned to increase my rent contribution now that I had a degree. No graduation party, no celebration dinner, just business as usual. Ashley graduated last year with a degree in communications and immediately moved back home rent-free. My parents threw her this huge graduation party, invited like 50 people, had it catered, the whole 9 yards. They gave her a brand new laptop as a graduation gift. I got a Walmart gift card for $25 when I graduated. I'm not even kidding. After I graduated, I landed a decent job as a junior logistics coordinator, making $42,000 a year. It wasn't amazing money, but it was solid for someone just starting out. My parents immediately raised my rent to $600 a month because you can afford it now. They also started asking me to chip in for groceries, utilities, and random household repairs. Some months I was dropping close to $900 on household expenses, while Ashley contributed literally nothing. I brought this up multiple times. Every single time I got the same responses. Ashley is still figuring things out. You're more stable than she is. We're helping her get on her feet. My personal favorite was when my mom said, "You're the man of the family after your father. You should be proud to help support your family." Yeah, real proud to be financially supporting my adult sister, who spends her days posting on Instagram and applying to jobs she has zero intention of actually taking. Ashley has had probably 15 different jobs in the 3 years since graduating. She'd work somewhere for 2 to 3 months, decide she didn't like it because her boss was toxic or her coworkers were draining her energy, quit without notice, then spend the next month living off our parents while taking time to reset. Every time they'd support her decision. Mental health is so important. She needs to find the right fit. Meanwhile, if I had quit a job without another one lined up, I would have been homeless within 24 hours. Her job history read like a comedy sketch. She'd been a receptionist at a dental office until she decided the dentist was micromanaging her by asking her to actually answer the phone. She worked at a pet store for 6 weeks before quitting because cleaning up after animals was gross. She tried being a bank teller but quit after a month because standing for 8 hours was inhumane. She was a sales associate at 3 different clothing stores, quitting each one because customers were rude or management expected her to actually hit sales targets. Every single time she quit, she'd come home with a new excuse. The hours were too early. The commute was too far. Her coworkers were cliquey. Her manager didn't appreciate her creative ideas. She was overqualified. She was underutilized. It was never her fault, never her responsibility. And my parents ate it up every single time, reassuring her that she'd find the perfect fit eventually. Meanwhile, I'd been at the same logistics company for 4 years, working my way up from junior coordinator to senior coordinator to now manager. I dealt with difficult bosses, long hours, tedious work, and frustrating clients. But I stuck with it because that's what adults do. You don't just quit every time something isn't perfect. But Ashley got to live in this fantasy world where jobs are supposed to be fun and fulfilling 100% of the time, and my parents encouraged that delusion. The financial double standard was insane. I paid $600 monthly rent, bought my own food, paid for my own phone bill, car insurance, gas, everything. Ashley paid for exactly nothing. She didn't even buy her own toiletries. My mom bought all her stuff and Ashley would regularly steal mine because we're family. What's the big deal? But here's where it gets even better. My parents would regularly ask me for money for household emergencies. The water heater broke? I'd chip in $300. Roof needed repairs? $500 from me. Car needed new brakes? $200. These requests came every few months like clockwork. I couldn't say no because the implication was always there. If I didn't help out, maybe I didn't deserve to live there. Meanwhile, Ashley would ask for money for things like concert tickets, new clothes for job interviews she'd never go on, or emergency trips to visit friends in other states. And my parents would just hand it over. They gave her $500 once so she could go to some music festival with her friends, because she's been so stressed lately and deserves a break. When I asked for $100 to cover a certification exam that would help my career, I got a lecture about financial responsibility and being self-sufficient. I saved money anyway. Every dollar I could scrape together went into a savings account that my parents didn't know about. I'd eat the cheapest food I could find, never went out with friends, didn't date, basically lived like a monk. My goal was to save up enough for first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit so I could finally get out of that house. But here's the problem. Every time I got close to having enough saved, something would happen. My car would break down. I'd get sick and have medical bills. My laptop would die, and I'd need a new one for work. It's like the universe had a personal vendetta against me escaping. By the time I was 26, I had about $3,500 saved up, which sounds decent until you realize that's barely enough to cover moving costs in my area, where studios go for $1,200 a month minimum. Then 3 months ago, everything changed. My company announced internal promotions and I applied for a logistics manager position. I had to interview against 5 other candidates, put together this whole presentation about supply chain optimization, basically prove I deserved this role. I worked on that presentation for 2 solid weeks, staying up until 2 a.m. some nights. I got the promotion. They bumped me up to $68,000 annually with better benefits, including a $5,000 signing bonus for the new position. I was absolutely thrilled. This was the break I'd been waiting for. With that kind of money, I could save up and move out within 6 months, maybe even sooner. I made the mistake of sharing this news with my family at dinner the night I got the promotion. I was genuinely excited and thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud of me. I should have known better. My mom's first reaction was, "Oh, honey, that's wonderful." My dad nodded and said, "Good job, son." I started explaining what the role involved, how it was a big step up in my career, how I'd be managing a team of 4 people. They seemed interested for about 30 seconds. Then Ashley looked up from her phone, because of course she'd been on her phone during the whole conversation, and said, "So, like, you're basically rich now, right?" She said it in this joking tone, but there was an edge to it. She immediately followed up with, "Oh my gosh, you should totally take us all out to celebrate. Like somewhere nice, not Applebee's." I laughed it off and said we could do something modest to celebrate. That's when my dad dropped the bomb. He put down his fork, looked at me with this serious expression, and said, "You know, now that you're making significantly more money, we need to discuss your contribution to the household." I should have seen it coming. I really should have. But I was still riding high on the promotion news and didn't catch the warning signs. I said, sure, we could discuss adjusting my rent contribution. Maybe bump it up to $750 or $800 a month, which seemed reasonable given my salary increase. My dad shook his head. That's not quite what we had in mind. Your mother and I have been discussing our financial situation. With the economy being what it is, our expenses have increased significantly. Property taxes went up, insurance costs more, groceries are expensive. We think the fair thing to do is have you contribute your entire paycheck to the household fund. I literally laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't smiling. Neither was my mom. Ashley was suddenly very interested in the conversation and had put her phone down. I said, "Wait, you're serious? You want my entire salary?" My dad nodded and said, "We'll give you an allowance of $300 a month for your personal expenses. Gas, food when you eat out, entertainment, whatever you need. The rest goes into the household account. We're a family, and families support each other." I just sat there processing this absolute insanity. They wanted me to hand over roughly $5,600 a month and live on $300, like I was a teenager getting allowance. That's literally less than what I was making at my first job at 18. I wouldn't be able to save anything. I couldn't move out. I'd be stuck there indefinitely, funding their lifestyle while they continued to bankroll Ashley's extended gap year. I tried to stay calm. I pointed out that I was 26 years old, paying rent already, contributing to household expenses, and that keeping my entire paycheck was unreasonable. My dad's response was, "It's not unreasonable to expect you to help your family. We've provided for you for 26 years. This is how you pay us back." Pay them back? For what? For charging me rent since I was 18? For making me pay for my own college while funding Ashley's private school education? For asking me to cover hundreds of dollars in household repairs while Ashley lived completely free? I tried a different approach. I asked them to walk me through the math. How exactly did they expect me to live on $300 a month? That wouldn't even cover gas for my commute and basic necessities. My dad said, "You live here. You don't need much. You have a roof over your head and food in the fridge. $300 is plenty for your personal expenses." I pointed out that I'd have no ability to save for emergencies, no ability to eventually move out, no ability to build any kind of financial future. I'd be completely dependent on them indefinitely. My dad actually smiled when I said that and responded, "Exactly. Families should live together and support each other. There's no reason for you to move out when we can all live here and pool our resources." That's when I realized what this really was. They didn't want a contribution. They wanted control. They wanted me trapped there forever, funding their lifestyle and Ashley's extended adolescence. I'd be their retirement plan and Ashley's safety net all rolled into one, and I'd never be able to leave because I'd never be able to save money. My mom jumped in with her justification. "Honey, you have to understand. We've invested so much in both of you kids. Ashley is still finding her path, and she needs our support right now. You're stable and successful. We knew you'd turn out fine, but Ashley needs more help, and with your new salary, you can provide that help. It's what family does." I asked her directly. "So you're saying I worked hard, got good grades, and got promoted so I can fund Ashley's lifestyle?" She didn't like that phrasing. She said I was being reductive and missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture being that I'm the responsible one, so I get punished for it while Ashley gets rewarded for being irresponsible. There it was. They wanted to use my money to continue funding Ashley's extended adolescence. I asked point blank if Ashley would be expected to contribute when she finally got a stable job. My mom actually had the nerve to say, "Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Every situation is different." I knew exactly what that meant. Ashley would never be expected to contribute a dime. She'd live there rent-free indefinitely while I bankrolled everything. The plan was essentially to use me as their personal ATM to supplement their retirement and support my adult sister. I told them I needed to think about it. My dad's face changed. He got this cold look and said, "There's nothing to think about. Either you contribute properly to this household, or you need to find somewhere else to live. You have until the end of the week to decide." End of the week? He gave me 4 days to either agree to financial servitude or get out. Ashley was smirking. Actually smirking. She knew this would benefit her directly. More money from me meant more money for her concerts and trips and whatever else she wanted. That night, I went to my room and did the math. I had $3,500 saved up. My signing bonus of $5,000 was being processed and would hit my account in 1 week. That's $8,500 total. I started looking at apartments online. Studios in my area ran $1,200 to $1,500. With first month, last month, and security deposit, I'd need about $4,000 to move into a decent place. That left me with $4,500 for furniture and basic setup. It would be tight, really tight, but it was possible. I could grab basic furniture from Facebook Marketplace, use my existing kitchenware, sleep on an air mattress until I could afford a real bed. I'd done rough living before. I could do it again. The alternative was staying there and being financially trapped forever. Because let's be real, if I agreed to this arrangement, I'd never get out. They'd find reasons to increase their cut. Ashley would need more support. There'd always be some household emergency that required more money. I'd be 35 years old still living at home, working my butt off, and watching every penny of my paycheck disappear into the family fund while Ashley lived her best life. I spent the next 3 days apartment hunting during my lunch breaks and after work. I found a studio apartment about 20 minutes from my office. It was small, about 450 square feet, but it was clean and in a safe area. The landlord was willing to work with me on the deposit if I could show proof of employment and pay the first 2 months up front. I called him, explained my situation without getting into too many details, and asked if I could do a walkthrough that evening. He was cool about it, showed me the place. It had a tiny kitchenette, a bathroom that was basically a closet with a shower, and a main room that would serve as bedroom and living room. There was one window that overlooked the parking lot. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Or it could be. I applied that night. Because I had good credit and stable employment with my promotion letter as proof of income, he approved me within 24 hours. He said I could move in the following week if I had the money ready. I told him I'd have it. My signing bonus hit my account on day 5, the day after my dad's deadline. Perfect timing, honestly. I now had $8,500 and an apartment waiting for me. I spent that entire day at work planning my exit strategy. I wasn't going to tell them until I was ready to walk out the door. The moment I announced I was leaving, things would get ugly, and I wanted to be prepared. That weekend, I told my parents I was visiting a friend and would be gone most of Saturday. Instead, I went to Walmart and Target and bought the absolute basics: air mattress, cheap pillow and sheets, some towels, basic kitchenware, toilet paper, cleaning supplies. Nothing fancy, just enough to survive for the first few weeks while I got settled. I loaded everything into my car and took it to a friend's garage. He was the only person I'd told about what was happening, and he was more than happy to help me out. Sunday morning, I transferred the deposit and first 2 months' rent to my new landlord. Done. I had an apartment. I had keys being processed. I was moving in on Tuesday. My parents had no idea. Monday evening, my dad sat me down for the conversation. Ashley was conveniently out with friends. My mom sat next to my dad on the couch, and I sat in the chair across from them like I was in a job interview. My dad started with, "So, have you made your decision?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, I have. I'm moving out." The silence was immediate and heavy. My mom's face went pale. My dad's jaw tightened. He said, "You're what?" I stayed calm. I explained that I appreciated everything they'd done for me, but I was 26 years old, and it was time for me to live independently. I'd already found an apartment and would be moving in tomorrow. I wished them the best. My dad lost it. He started yelling about how disrespectful I was being, how I was abandoning my family, how they'd sacrificed so much for me, and this is how I repaid them. My mom started crying and saying I was tearing the family apart. It was pure theater. I didn't engage. I didn't yell back. I just sat there and let them get it out of their system. When my dad finally paused for breath, I said, "Look, you gave me an ultimatum. Hand over my entire paycheck or leave. I'm choosing to leave. This is what you said I should do if I couldn't meet your demands." My dad stammered and said, "We didn't actually mean you should leave. We just wanted you to see how serious we were about family contributions. You're being dramatic." Classic manipulation. Make an ultimatum. Act shocked when someone takes you seriously, then gaslight them about what was actually said. I told them I'd heard them loud and clear and had made my decision accordingly. I'd be out by tomorrow afternoon. My mom switched tactics. She went from crying to angry in about 5 seconds. She said, "Fine, if that's how you want to be. Don't come crying to us when you realize how hard life is on your own. You won't make it 3 months before you come crawling back. I just nodded and said, okay. That one word seemed to frustrate her more than anything else I could have said. She wanted me to fight, to argue, to give her ammunition. I wasn't giving her anything. Ashley came home around 10 p.m. and lost her mind when she found out I was leaving. Not because she'd miss me. Let's be real. She was panicking because she'd just lost her golden ticket. No more free ride. My parents would have to fund her lifestyle entirely on their own now. She actually said, "You can't just leave. What about me?" I looked at her and said, "What about you? You're 23. Get a job and keep it." She started crying and ran to her room. My mom glared at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. I went to my room and started packing. I didn't have much. Most of my stuff fit in 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. I'd been living pretty minimally anyway, since most of my money went to rent and household contributions. I stayed up most of the night packing and texting my friend to coordinate moving my stuff from his garage to my new place. Tuesday morning, I loaded up my car before my parents woke up. I made 3 trips, once to drop stuff at my new apartment, once to grab my stuff from my friend's garage, and once more to get the last boxes from my room. By noon, everything I owned was out of that house. I left my key on the kitchen counter with a note. I kept it simple. Thanks for everything. I'll be in touch. I didn't owe them more than that. My mom tried to call me twice while I was driving to my new place. I didn't answer. Ashley sent me a long text about how selfish I was being and how I was ruining everything. I read it, rolled my eyes, and deleted it. Moving into that studio apartment was one of the best moments of my life. It was tiny and empty, and I was sleeping on an air mattress, but it was mine. Nobody could demand my paycheck. Nobody could threaten to kick me out. Nobody could guilt me into funding their lifestyle. I sat on my air mattress that first night eating pizza I'd ordered for myself, and I felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. The apartment wasn't much to look at, honestly. The carpet was this beige color that had probably been installed in the 90s. The paint on the walls was basic white with a few scuff marks. The kitchenette had a 2-burner stove, a mini fridge, and exactly 3 feet of counter space. The bathroom was so small that the door would hit the toilet when you opened it fully. But standing there in that empty space with my boxes stacked in the corner, I felt like I'd won the lottery. I spent the first evening just setting up the basics. I inflated my air mattress and made it up with the cheap sheets I'd bought. I unpacked my clothes and hung them in the tiny closet. I set up my toiletries in the bathroom. I arranged my dishes in the 2 cabinets I had. It took maybe 2 hours to unpack everything I owned. That's how little I had. But it was all mine. That first week, I lived like a minimalist monk. I'd wake up on my air mattress, shower in my cramped bathroom, make eggs on my 2-burner stove, and head to work. After work, I'd come home to my empty apartment and feel this sense of peace. No Ashley walking into my room without knocking. No parents asking me for money. No guilt trips about family obligations. Just me and my 450 square feet of freedom. The first week was quiet. My parents didn't contact me. Ashley sent a few more guilt-trippy texts that I ignored. I bought a cheap desk and chair from Facebook Marketplace and set up a little workspace. I grabbed a small TV someone was giving away for free. I was living like a college student again, but it felt like freedom. Week 2 is when things got interesting. My mom called me crying. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She was sobbing about how I'd abandoned them and how hurt they were. I waited for her to finish and then asked if there was an actual reason for the call or if she just wanted to make me feel guilty. She got quiet and then hung up. My dad called the next day. He was much more direct. He said they were having some financial difficulties and could really use my help. He didn't specify what kind of help, but I knew exactly what he meant. Money. I told him I was just getting settled in my new place, and my budget was pretty tight with rent and utilities. He got frustrated and said, "We're your parents. You should help us." I reminded him that he'd given me an ultimatum to hand over my entire paycheck or leave, and I'd made my choice. He didn't have a response to that. Ashley called 3 days later, absolutely furious. Apparently, my parents had told her she needed to start contributing $400 a month for rent and expenses. She was losing her mind. How am I supposed to pay rent? I barely make anything. You were supposed to handle this. You're the successful one. I told her to get a better job and hung up. Here's what I learned through the grapevine over the next few weeks. My parents had based their entire budget around my $600 monthly rent plus the additional contributions they'd been hitting me up for. They'd gotten used to that extra $900-ish every month and had built it into their standard of living. When I left, they suddenly had a $900 hole in their monthly budget. But it gets better. Remember how they wanted my entire paycheck? Turns out they were planning to use that money to pay off debt. Credit card debt. Lots of it. My dad had apparently been living beyond his means for years, and between that and funding Ashley's lifestyle, they'd racked up around $35,000 in credit card debt across multiple cards. They were making minimum payments and drowning in interest. Their plan had been to use my $5,600 monthly salary to aggressively pay down that debt while keeping me on a $300 allowance. They figured they could knock out the debt in less than a year if they threw my entire paycheck at it. Then, they'd be debt-free and still have my income to supplement their retirement. I would have been their indentured servant, paying off debt I didn't create. When I left, their plan collapsed. They couldn't afford their current lifestyle and pay down debt and support Ashley. Something had to give. Something had to. They tried to make Ashley contribute, but she was only bringing in maybe $1,000 a month from her part-time job at a boutique. Even if she gave them half her paycheck, it wasn't enough to fill the gap I'd left. The reality hit them fast. That first month after I left, they realized just how much my rent had been subsidizing their life. My $600 a month had been covering their property tax increase from the previous year. The additional money they'd been hitting me up for, the $300 here, $500 there for household repairs, had been masking their overspending problem. They'd been living paycheck to paycheck, but padding it with my contributions. Without me there, they had to actually look at their finances. My dad's salary covered the mortgage and basic utilities. My mom's part-time income covered groceries and insurance. But all the extras they'd gotten used to, eating out twice a week, my mom's monthly shopping trips, the premium cable package, Ashley's random expenses, all of that had been coming from my contributions without them even realizing it. My mom went back to work full-time after being part-time for years. She'd been working 20 hours a week at a retail job, basically for fun money. Now she had to get a full 40-hour position just to keep their heads above water. She complained to relatives about how exhausting it was working full-time in your 50s. I'd been working full-time since I was 18. Zero sympathy from me. My dad started picking up overtime at his job. He worked in manufacturing and had the option to do Saturday shifts for time and a half pay. He'd always turned those shifts down before because weekends were his time to relax. Now he was working 6 days a week just to make ends meet. He looked exhausted every time I saw him after that, which wasn't often. Ashley was forced to actually keep her job at the boutique because they made it clear they wouldn't support her if she quit. For the first time in her life, she had to experience what it felt like to need a job instead of wanting one. She couldn't just walk away when she felt like it. She had bills to contribute to. She was miserable. She called me crying about how unfair it was that she had to work full-time and pay rent. I reminded her I'd been doing exactly that since I was 18. She hung up on me. By month 3, things were getting really bad for them. I heard through extended family that my parents were fighting constantly about money. Ashley was apparently having meltdowns every other day about her lost freedom. They'd had to cancel their vacation plans. My mom's car needed repairs, and they couldn't afford it. They had to cut back on groceries and eating out. All the little luxuries they'd gotten used to were gone. My dad called me again. This time he dropped the authoritative dad act and went straight to begging. He said they really needed help, and could I please just loan them $2,000 to get through a rough patch? I asked what the rough patch was. He admitted they were behind on credit card payments and facing increased interest rates and late fees. I said no. He got angry again and said I was being cruel and heartless to my own parents. I reminded him that he'd threatened to kick me out unless I gave him my entire paycheck. He'd made it clear I was only valuable to them as a source of income. I told him I wasn't a bank and I wasn't interested in funding his debt repayment. He called me some choice names and hung up. Ashley sent me a novel of a text about what a horrible brother I was, how I'd ruined her life, how my parents were struggling, and it was all my fault. I wrote back a single sentence. Get a degree that leads to an actual job instead of communications. She blocked me. My mom tried the guilt trip approach one more time. She came to my apartment unannounced one evening. I don't know how she got my address. Probably from my job or something. She showed up crying, saying how much she missed me, how the family wasn't the same without me. She brought cookies she'd baked. It was a whole production. I invited her in because I'm not completely heartless. She looked around my tiny studio with this expression that was part pity, part shock. I could tell she expected me to be living in squalor, and she seemed almost disappointed that I had a clean, organized space. It wasn't fancy, but I'd made it work. She sat on my secondhand couch and did the whole concerned mom routine. Honey, are you eating okay? Are you happy here? This place is so small. You could have your old room back, you know. We miss you. I let her talk. When she was done, I asked her to please get to the real reason she was there. She dropped the act and said they needed financial help. just to get through the next few months. Once they got back on their feet, they'd pay me back. Every dollar. I asked why they were in such bad financial shape if they'd been doing fine before I left. She admitted that they'd been relying on my contributions more than she'd realized. I pointed out that they'd literally tried to take my entire salary. She backpedaled and said that was just a negotiating position. They never really expected me to agree to it. They just wanted me to contribute more than $600. Maybe like $1,500 a month would have been reasonable. I told her that ship had sailed. I wasn't moving back home, and I wasn't sending them money. She started crying again and said I'd changed, that I used to be such a caring son. I said I was the same person. I just finally had boundaries. She left in tears, leaving the cookies behind. They were actually pretty good cookies. I ate them while watching Netflix. Month 4 is when everything really imploded for them. My dad's car broke down. Major repairs needed. They couldn't afford it. He had to take out a loan for the repairs, adding to their debt burden. Ashley got fired from her boutique job for showing up late too many times. She blamed me somehow in a voicemail she left. I didn't call back. My parents had to take out a loan against their house to pay off the credit cards because the interest was killing them. They got a home equity line of credit for $30,000, paid off most of the credit card debt, but now they had a HELOC payment on top of their mortgage. They were drowning. The extended family started getting involved. Aunts and uncles were calling me asking why I wasn't helping my parents through their financial troubles. I gave them all the same explanation. My parents had demanded my entire paycheck, threatened to kick me out when I refused, so I left. Suddenly, the family got a lot quieter. A few of them even said I'd made the right call. My grandma, my mom's mom, called me specifically to say she was proud of me for standing up for myself. She told me she'd suspected my parents were playing favorites with Ashley for years and was glad I'd gotten out. She sent me a check for $500 as a housewarming gift. That was nice. Ashley apparently moved in with her boyfriend after getting fired. That relationship lasted 2 months before he kicked her out for not contributing to rent or groceries. She had to move back in with my parents. Now she's back in her old room, unemployed again, and from what I hear, my parents are at their wits' end with her. My mom sent me an email recently. Long, rambling, full of regrets and apologies. She said they'd made mistakes and pushed too hard. She said they were wrong to try to take my whole paycheck. She said they missed me and wanted to rebuild our relationship. No mention of money this time, just an actual apology. I wrote back. I said I appreciated the apology and I was willing to work on rebuilding our relationship slowly. But I made it clear that any future relationship would be on my terms, with boundaries, and would not involve me funding their lifestyle or Ashley's extended adolescence. She wrote back agreeing to those terms. My dad hasn't apologized. He called once more asking for money and I told him I wasn't interested in discussing finances with him. He hasn't called since. That was 2 weeks ago. Ashley is still blocked. She can unblock me when she grows up. As for me, I'm doing great. My studio apartment is actually pretty cozy now. I found a decent bed frame and mattress on sale. I've got my little routine going. Work is going well and I'm excelling in my management role. I'm saving money every month. Actual savings that stay in my account. I've got $6,000 saved up already. Last I heard, Ashley finally got another job as a server at a restaurant. She's working 30 hours a week and hating every minute of it. Welcome to adulthood, sis. The rest of us have been here for a while. My parents are still struggling financially, but that's not my problem anymore. They made their bed. They prioritized Ashley for years, tried to exploit me when I got successful, and now they're facing the consequences. I feel zero guilt about it. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.